Alright, you guys, another Monday, another video, and we are coming up very soon on my kind of like 1 year anniversary on YouTube, which will be kind of exciting. I don't know if I'll do anything specifically for it. I guess you guys will just have to like watch my thumbnails and see. I'm sure it'll give me like a fun topic to talk about, maybe like some sort of like reflection video, but to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the video or what we will be doing, I am completing a Procreate painting or a digital painting on my iPad, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about like color contrast, foreshortening, scale, and a few other things, and just kind of like my process as I painted this. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, I'm Rory Fluent. Feel free to call me Rory. If you're new around here, hi, hello, how are you? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I like to create dope art content and hopefully a chill atmosphere. And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? Let's get into this video. So you can see I'm starting right off the bat with a little bit of a reference from Pinterest, and I don't necessarily take anything from the photo other than just a little bit of a study about foreshortening. I was just kind of trying to come up with a good way to learn how to fuck around with scale, and I saw this image on Pinterest and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. I'd love to kind of I guess like paint this tree like going up into the sky, and to see if I can nail that perspective in a way that is effective and like easily recognizable. And so that's kind of what I set out to do with this piece, is just to kind of mess around a little bit with size and contrast and color, and see if I could make a piece that kind of pops and you can understand that it is actually supposed to be like foreshortened, so the tree's base is like much bigger than the actual top of the tree, and kind of trying to mess around with that perspective because I've never really, I guess I have in the past probably, but it's not really something that I do frequently anymore. So I really wanted to go ahead and see if I could pull my old skill set, my old knowledge from some basic art classes, and see if I could, with the help of this reference, draw and paint a tree and a little scene that's sort of from this strange like topsy-turvy angle, and see if I could do it in a way that actually reads as the tree being foreshortened. And yeah, I decided that I didn't want it to just be the forest, so I wanted to have like a little sheepy guy in there somewhere, and I went ahead and planted him right at the base of the tree just to kind of help emphasize that this tree is massive and, you know, like the way that we are viewing this tree is from a slightly upward angle, so there's, like I said, that foreshortening perspective happening, which can be like so weird and confusing because foreshortening can make things look really strange as you process what it is and like what it's actually supposed to look like and what I guess your goal is with the piece, and it can just make things look really distorted in a way that when you're like concentrating on singular pieces of the whole painting can be really disconcerting and just feel off. But then you look at the entire thing as a whole and you're like, oh no, like that is right, like in real life you would look that way, or a tree would look this way. But while I'm focusing on individual pieces of this painting, you know, things start to look a little skewed and a little strange. So that was something I was like constantly battling, was like, no, this isn't weird. And I mean, it's a lot easier with trees. I know there's this example out there that like anyone who's had to study like this size contrast and foreshortening has probably learned about. The painting is like a foreshortened version of Christ, and it's called like The Mourning Over the Dead Christ, and it's by Andrea Mantegna, I think is how you would pronounce it. And it was created like forever ago, like in the 1400s, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna have like an example of it, I'm sure, up on the screen, probably with a little citation if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, there's like this really strange, obscure version of Christ where these people are kind of like standing over Christ, and I would say that it's still feels a little wonky when you look at it. It's like, I'm not sure that they did this right, but it's, I believe, one of the first known examples of foreshortening, so at the very least it was an attempt at it. I'm not like super well versed in that particular painting and the study of foreshortening. It was something we briefly studied in art history classes that I took, but yeah, so I remember that particular painting being really, really strange because his feet look so much larger than the rest of his body, and the idea is that his feet are closer to the viewer looking in the frame of reference, and his head would be smaller and the rest of his body would slowly get smaller as it recedes sort of into the background of the painting, or at least approaches the background of the painting. So the illusion is that his feet are like right up in the viewer's face, and then his head is the farthest part of him from us as the viewer looking into that frame of reference. I hope that made sense. So naturally, applying that to this particular piece, the base of the tree would be the largest piece of the tree because it's the closest to the viewer, even though compared to the painting of Christ, it would be a little bit different because the base of the tree is still farther from the viewer in this painting and in the way that I decided to paint it. So it's not like this giant, massive base of a tree. It's still sort of off in the distance in the middle ground of the painting. So the closest thing to us is sort of this swoosh of land and grass. And then as the tree sort of recedes into the top of the painting, not necessarily the background, but because the background would be like the sky and that would be the furthest point from us, but as it recedes towards the sky into the top of the painting, the tree gets a bit smaller. And so the idea is hopefully giving this illusion that the tree is large, that we are pretty far away from it, and that it is growing tall towards the sky. I guess was the goal, which is how I want the painting to read and what I hope that you guys get from it as you see the completed piece. Obviously, I'm always open to suggestions and polite critique, so please let me know if there's anything you think I could have done differently. I might even go back and edit it, because that's the fun thing about Procreate and digital painting is that you can take, even when the piece might be finished to you, you can take other people's perspectives and feedback and apply it into the painting despite it being kind of done. You can always keep applying what you are learning to the piece, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. At the moment in the piece, you can see I'm kind of playing around with this sort of flesh tone brown set of colors. It's a little bit warmer in the final piece, so you'll kind of see how that goes, a little bit redder. But I'm playing with these sort of browns, these fleshy tones, and then this mauve, very nice, cool toned pink that kind of bleeds into a cooler toned purple. And I started to realize as I completed this piece that not only did I want a little bit more color contrast, I wanted to add another color in, and you'll see me struggle with that color and the integration of it into the piece, because that's what happens when you don't do color samples and color iteration before you start a final piece, which is something that I'd like to actually get into the habit of doing, because my graphic design degree taught me to iterate and to ideate in a very fast, rapid way, so I can pump out a lot of sketches very quickly, and I'd love to kind of show that process and show how it could apply to art and how it should apply to my art. Sometimes I just get lazy and I have an idea in my head and I just kind of want to throw it at the page and tweak it as we go. But if I really wanted a piece to be, I guess, the most polished, pristine version of itself, I would definitely integrate this process that I have. I guess you would call it my design process. And so I'm thinking about sharing that and completing a painting using that design process. Let me know if that sounds like something any of you guys would like to see, but it's something I'm interested in sharing. I think it could be really useful to give people a way to start approaching not only art in general, but specifically finalizing pieces. But back to the video, you'll eventually see me start to mess around a little bit. I'm really taking a step back and realizing that there's some contrast needed. I start with some value contrast. I throw in these kind of shadows into the background and middle ground to see if I can kind of add a little bit more oomph to the contrast of the painting. There needed to be more darks because the background was so pale and light. There just really needed to be some more shades and less tints to the entire piece. So I started trying to, fuck around and see what I could do with the actual shadows of the piece and think about where they would be and what they're doing and how they're interacting with the trees and the different little pieces of the painting, the trees, the foreground with the grass, and then the little sheepy boy. I also start to realize as I'm looking at the piece that the background is lacking. I want there to be more going on. So I start to add these sort of like movement swooshes that are supposed to mimic sort of like trees in the background. You'll see I start adding different colors to the tree tops to see if I can kind of get that contrast that I'm searching for, not only in value and but also in color. And then I start to add like my little sheepy boy because I'm like, okay, there's just like not enough contrast in general going on. It needs some more shape contrast, size contrast, color contrast, value contrast. It needs a little bit of all of it. So I kind of start jumping around, trying to see what kind of will help me start to get excited about the piece again, because I'm feeling a little bit like I'm struggling, and just kind of help me continue to approach this piece with the excitement that I had when I started it. And that isn't to say that I didn't thoroughly enjoy this painting. I almost always enjoy Procreate paintings. I know something I've talked about before and kind of touched on. I don't know. There's something about Procreate, and it's so easy, and it's so like malleable, you can make flash decisions and not regret them because they took you 15 minutes to realize that you hated it, and now it's going to take you 30 to undo the mistake that you made, if it's even possible to undo it in traditional media at times. So with Procreate, there's just this freedom to really figure a painting out as you go, and I really enjoy that, even though I want to get a little bit more rigid like I was talking about with my process, and I'd love to share that with you guys in a future video. I have a couple ideas for things kind of bouncing around in my brain of like things I want to paint, and it's really nice because it's been a while since I've had like multiple ideas going on in my head. I feel like week to week I've been a little lost, and I've been a little bit like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna do this, which is kind of what happened with this piece. Like, I just sat down and I went, well, I know I'd like to paint and Procreate, but I don't really know what I want to paint. And when I get like that, I tend to fall back to any references or inspiration pics that I've saved in Pinterest, and I start kind of browsing the pins and seeing what calls out to me. Going back to what's happening currently in the video, I was really feeling like I was kind of wrangling this piece. I was like, oh, really regretting not doing like color samples beforehand, where I took the sketch, shrunk it down, and duplicated it a bunch of times, and then sort of made like miniature versions of the frame of reference, stuck those sketches in it, and then just kind of laid down flat colors to see what I wanted to do. I really want to, have like a tighter process when it comes to completing finalized paintings, and I'm hoping saying it out loud here means that you guys will hold me to it, and I will hold myself to it in the future, because I love my design process, and I love how tight and neat it is, and it never fails me, so I don't know why I don't use it in my art, especially for completed paintings. There's something so enjoyable about like just milking every single idea out of your brain when solving a problem of any kind. And by problem, I just mean by like any theme or I don't know, anything that I'd like to paint. If I give it to myself as a problem and I approach it as I would a design problem, I, sketch out so many different ideas for the theme, and then I take like the top 3 or 5 and then I iterate on them, and I create more sketches based off of those 3 or 5 ideas, and then from there I choose my favorite ones, I finalize them further, and then boom, I have this like really refined concept that I can take this more finalized sketch, blow it up, refinalize the sketch and then start doing color layouts and start to do iterating on the different color palettes that I'd like to use, and so on and so forth until the piece is completed and I have just like the most refined version of an idea. You can see that I finally land on a set of colors that I felt like was contrasting in a really nice way. This like cool toned green, cool toned pink, warmer or like more neutral toned set of browns, and then this really nice cool toned blue. And I just felt like the slightly warmer, slightly more neutral brown really stuck out compared to the three cool toned colors, and the depth of the foreground being so dark and then the background being as light as it was just like really nice and really refreshing. And I was like, oh my god, finally. It was like breathing fresh air into this piece. It didn't feel bogged down, and as I finished the line work, I was like, okay, this is definitely it. I've been really trying to focus lately on like not relying on the line work to be the relying factor on the entire piece coming together. Like, I want the colors to contrast enough and the value to contrast enough that the piece doesn't have to have line work to be recognizable at the very least. I'm not saying it has to be finished because I do love my line work. But I'd like the colors to not blend too much together unless it's intentional. Like here with the soft blue that's slightly brighter than the blue that's in the background, I kind of wanted that to look like the light hitting the side of the trees, and then like the deeper purple to be the sort of more shaded, darker part of the trees, just to give a little bit of depth. Not like a ton, you know. I was definitely going for a little bit more like a specific style with this piece, but I really enjoyed it. And I had a lot of fun. And then those pops of green and like these sort of lines on the texture lines on the pink like mauve shade in the trees, I really enjoyed that. I felt like leaving a little bit of the green just added some nice, again, more like color variation and interesting colors that were just looking really nice and really good together. And yeah, I was just like really stoked, honestly, about the way that this ended up coming together, because it was a little scatterbrained and a little terrifying there for a minute while I was figuring out the colors. But there's always something so nice about that finalizing, like inking. It's just, I finally found that inking brush that I really enjoy that I've mentioned in past videos. It's like Gazinski ink, I believe, and it's one of the ones that comes in like the iPad. So if you have an iPad, you have it. And I just thoroughly enjoy it. It really mimics the Tombow brush pens that I love to use traditionally, and it's really made me look forward to inking in the same way that I do in my traditional work in Procreate, which was so much fun to finally do. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I could have in the piece pushed the perspective maybe a little bit further, pushed that foreshortening a little bit more, but I don't know. Let me know, like I mentioned earlier in the video, what you guys think. Did I like accomplish the foreshortening? Do you have any other ideas on how, or like things that I could have improved on in this piece? Because overall, for a first try at foreshortening in a long time, I am actually pretty happy with it. And I feel like overall, it definitely, like with the Tiny Sheep Boy, I feel like it really like pulled together the foreshortening and the size contrast and sort of like the scale of the entire piece. I felt like there was actually like some weight to the scale, like these trees were sort of like impeding on the sheep and sort of like gravitating and leaning towards the middle of the painting, and it kind of made it feel like it was clashing together, which I really liked. I felt like the movement in the piece was pretty effective overall, and I was pretty psyched about that because that doesn't always happen. Like, getting movement in a piece is really hard. You know, capturing any kind of like energy can be a little difficult because paintings and even like doodles and sketches, they tend to be a little bit stagnant and feel a little still, if that makes sense. And so it was very nice to feel like the movement in this piece really turned out like I don't know, in the way that I wanted it to, especially as I add some of these final details, deepen the shadow on the middle ground tree, and add some lines with the shadow to start to give like the shadow a little bit of movement as well. And I don't know, maybe there are too many lines and it's clashing, but I thought it added like the right amount of chaos and felt again like there was just a lot happening in the background. And that was like really cool, because like the entire kind of background middle ground is the whole point of the piece, and then the sheep, which would normally in a given piece be like the subject of the painting, was far from the subject of the painting. You know, the movement in the trees, that's what I wanted you to focus on, and I feel like I did accomplish that, I think. The final touch to this piece is adding these little blobs in the background that I sort of like loosely color like the sheep to make it seem like there are more sheepy boys than just the one that's more refined in the painting. And with that is the finalized version of this painting. I really hope that you guys enjoyed seeing my entire process. And again, feel free to let me know any comments that you'd like. If you don't know what to comment, feel free to comment algorithm, because it's just super helpful. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys off, and hopefully I'll get to talk to you in the next video. Bye!